What's up, everyone? It's your host again, Carlos Ponce, and this is another live episode of Advancio Talks. And if you are just discovering us, well, welcome. But if you've been here since the very beginning, from 2022, you know what we are about, right? So, Advancio Talks is where we sit down with the people actually building the future of business and technology. So, not just talking about it, but doing it. CTOs, founders, the folks making decisions that matter. So whether you're drinking coffee or commuting or just curious about what's actually happening in tech, well, stick around because today we got here Allen Kopelman, CEO and founder of Nationwide Payment Systems, with us today. So Allen has got stories and insights that you won't hear anywhere else. So let's jump right in. And Allen, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me today, Carlos.
It's my pleasure, Allen. So great. Okay, so let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about you. Who's Allen Kopelman? What's your story? Anything you want to share with the audience is fine. Go, please.
So, 25 years plus in the payments business. Started Nationwide Payment Systems back in 2001. And prior to that, I was a chef and a restaurant owner. So I actually used merchant services and businesses that I had. And when I was looking for something else to do, I got into merchant services. And then I decided to start my own company. And the reason kind of behind that was that I found that the companies that I did deal with when I owned my business, they were kind of a pain, and there was nobody directly to talk to. And whenever there was an issue, it was always really hard to deal with those issues. And I wanted to, change how that worked and give people, somebody that they can trust, they can talk to, they can reach by phone, by text, and that we, and then take care of customers. And the other thing that I saw was that there was a lot of technology changing all the time. And, from 2001 to today, I mean, technology for credit card processing and merchant services and processing payments has changed dramatically. And that, that we pride ourselves on keeping up with that.
Awesome. So that's great. I mean, I find it interesting that you were also a chef. So I didn't know that. So that's something that's. I mean, it's interesting. Just did you like switch over careers, or did you work in parallel? How did you do it? How did you manage it?
Yeah,
Or
just made
how did
it. I made it. Yeah, kind of just made a transition from one business to another. I mean, one of the things I learned when I was a chef, I was working in a hotel and I had my first executive chef job. And, two things that I learned. My boss told me I can't be silent at meetings because I never really said much. So they sent me to Dale Carnegie. And the next thing I learned is no matter what kind of job you're in, you have to also be a salesperson. So they had somebody that was taking over the hotel for the weekend, and that was being planned out like 6 months in advance. They're like, oh, you have to come to the office and you got to go do your chef thing. And you got to wow these people and tell them what we're going to do for them while they're in the hotel and what they're going to tell you the requirements. And you got to come up with a plan like on the fly. And now it's, my first thing where it's like, oh, sales, And even when I went to culinary school, one of the instructors always told us, he goes, dazzle people with brilliance and baffle people with bullshit. And, and that the BS part is kind of like, industry jargon that you're going to throw at people, or technical things and things like that. So, I try to make sure, like when I talk to customers today about payment processing, one of the things we want to dive in on is tell us about your business. How did it start? What's the premise behind what you're doing, And then we want to know everything, like, oh, a customer buys something on your website. What happens after that? People don't know how important that is for us to know the flow of everything going on in your business, whether you're a plumber, an air conditioning company, an accountant, you're selling a coaching course, whatever it is that you're doing, we want to understand how your business operates.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tell us about nationwide payment system. What is your value prop? What problem do you solve, or how was the inception of the company that made you feel, hey, I should create this, and we're going to solve this problem? Tell us a little bit about the company, please.
So the company, the thing that we try to solve for, which is super, super important today, I would tell you, like in 2001, our if you walked into a business and they had a credit card machine, or a lot of businesses didn't have them, the first thing they would tell you is, I'm with my bank. Today, when we talk to customers, they're not telling us they're with their bank. They're telling us, I'm with Stripe, I'm with Square, I'm with PayPal, these type of companies, fintech companies. And
Mhm.
there's hidden secrets that people don't know what those companies do or don't do. And we today, businesses make decisions based on technology. And that's one of the things that we talk to businesses about is, okay, we want to understand, like, what are your technological, you know, requirements for, working with, what do we need to help you with? Because you can't just say, oh, I need credit card processing and it drops out of the sky, right? So do you need an API? Do you need us to link into a specific gateway? Are you using some software that we need to integrate into? So we work with clients on all of those different things. Or we need a new point of sale system. And then, okay, well, what do you want it to do? And then we go through the process with them so we can match businesses two ways. One, with the technology that you want. So you want to make sure you're using the correct technology that's going to work for your business, has the features and everything that you want. And then the second thing is making sure that the banking partner that we match you up with, that they understand your business, how it operates, and that they're comfortable with your business type. Because there's many regulated industries when it comes to accepting payments that have requirements. So, like if you're selling pharmaceutical products online, or you're a Nutra company, or you sell CBD, it's not the same as getting a merchant account for a restaurant or a retail store, or for somebody selling, oh, I sell T-shirts on my website, right? Or let's say Carlos sells microphones for people doing podcasts. So it's not just all cut and dry. Oh, we're taking a credit card and that's it. We want to make sure that on from the from the technology side and the processing side, that both all three things are going to work together. The business, the technology, and the bank, and then you have a solid foundation. And the other thing is, we want people to understand about communication. So, if we need to communicate with you, we need you to communicate back to us so that we can help you run your business efficiently. Whether it's a chargeback or a deposit, something you're worried about, or something our bank is asking about, like you did a large transaction and they want a copy of an invoice.
Absolutely. So thank you for elaborating on that part. So let's move on to today's topic, which is the merchant account trap, right? So
Right.
we're going to be talking about why fast payment setup decisions can come, with devastating hidden costs, right? So let me start. Let me just put it this here. Tell me a little bit about this. I mean, you have spent over 2 decades inside the payments ecosystem. What did you see broken early on that made you build nationwide payment systems instead of just working for someone else?
What we saw broken was is people, a lot of the companies we work with, you know, years ago, they would say, oh, if you need to sell technology, you got to go get technology partners. And, so we tried to partner with, companies that had not just had technology, but also they own their technology and they own the payment rails. So which is super important. So when you have a product, like we put together our product NPS1. So when we put that product together, you can do credit card processing, ACH, have a gateway, and then do a two-way sync to QuickBooks, which is optional, or just use our smart invoicing platform. Now, if I had to set that up for you two years ago, there would be 4 different companies involved. Today, that's just one company, one phone call, and everything is handled through one organization, and which is super important because nobody wants to go hunt down 4 companies when you're having an issue or you have a question and everybody's pointing fingers at each other. So it's super important when you have technology that it's all together. One phone call takes care of everything. And it's the same thing for a point of sale. We want to make sure the point of sale company, when you call up on the phone, that they're able to answer your technical question of something going on with point of sale, or if you have a question about some funds you didn't receive or a transaction, those questions can all be answered with one telephone call. And that's what's super important. So that's efficient for the business owner. Business owners don't want to call 5 people to solve a problem.
Excellent. So, um, I wanted to ask you also, most founders wait until payments break before thinking strategically about them. So, why does that pattern repeat itself so consistently, even among the experienced operators?
Well, one of the things, I was writing a blog the other day, and it was about, like what can go wrong with payments, and a couple of things came to mind. So a lot of times when we talk to a founder, that we'll get into a conversation like, well, we signed up with Stripe and then we processed $5,000 and then they shut us down. And part of the reason behind that is when you sign up with these companies, they don't have a phone number. There's nobody for you to talk to. And the biggest mistake that founders make is they never read the terms of service. They never look at the restricted list, and they never look at the prohibited list. And those companies have very strict restricted lists and prohibited lists in their terms of service. PayPal, Stripe, Square, it's one of the hidden secrets that nobody knows about, and it's never communicated. When you're even Shopify, you could build a website and put CBD on there, and then as soon as you done with your website, you hit turn on Shopify payments, they go, sorry, we don't support your product. And these kind of things happen all the time. I mean, we deal with that probably at least 2-3 phone calls every week are involving these kind of things. And then, they're like, well, I don't understand. Why is that happening? Why isn't the company dealing with me? Why aren't they helping me? And those things back up to, who the banks are that back those businesses. Even for us, we deal with, 10 different banks. And so when we're talking to a client and they say, oh, I'm going to do gaming. Okay, well, there's only probably 3 or 4 banks that want to do business with you. If you open a restaurant, there's hundreds of banks that want to do business with you. So it's all a risk. It's the same thing when you're going to get a car loan, or a mortgage, based on your credit score. Every bank has its risk parameters, around your credit score. In this case, it's more around like what kind of business that you have. And, I think a lot of founders make that mistake where all of a sudden, money's held, deposits aren't happening, and they're dealing with, all kinds of nightmares when their merchant accounts are shut off. And, when we board somebody, it's a lot different. They don't ask for a lot of information. They just check that you have a pulse and a federal tax ID number and a bank account. When we're boarding somebody, we're asking them a lot more questions about their business so that when they're running their business, we're not calling them up going, we need this, we need that, we need bank statements, we want to see this, we want to see that. I mean, it's a thing that most businesses don't understand. And the other big trap that people don't talk about, that people don't know about, is this. is that in 2010, there's a senator named Dick Durbin, not one of my favorite guys. And he did a thing called the Durbin Amendment. In the Durbin Amendment, it spells out specifically that there are special rates for debit cards. Not only are there special rates for debit cards, and I'm going to explain that, some of them are as low as 0.05%. Well, if you're paying Stripe 3 to 3.5%, 4%, they don't pass that debit card savings on to their merchants. None of those companies do. That's a big, huge profit center for them. And that if you're dealing with business to consumer payments, probably somewhere between 25 and 50% of your payments are in this debit card category, where you could be paying 2%. Some debit cards, the highest ones are like around 2%, and the lowest ones are 0.05%. So you have to be, see like how you're doing. Like we had a company that was selling makeup, and they had several accounts. Then they came to us, and when they came to us, we were like, okay, well, we can't really show you how the interchange is going to save you money, unless you give us one of your accounts. So they gave us one of their small accounts, and then they were shocked at the end of the month that instead of them paying about 3.5% for processing to a flat rate processor, they were paying right around 2% to us. And 1.5%, $1 million a month is a lot of money. It's a lot for even somebody doing $50,000 a month. So, you have to understand how the rates and fees are structured. And there's also businesses that have very specific interchange categories like insurance, education, utilities and things like that. Even people selling internet service, because there's a lot of internet resellers out there. There's all kinds of different. I don't want to call them there. Well, I guess I kind of compare it to this. You go to your accountant, and they look at everything you do, and they try to figure out how they can save you the most money so you can pay the least amount of taxes. So what I do is we want to figure out how you can pay the least amount of interchange. We, as a processing company, and even our banks, we do not get one dime from interchange. So the interchange goes back to the banks that issue the cards. So the cards you have in your wallet, those banks are issuing, those are the banks receiving the interchange. And that's the bulk of what businesses are paying to the credit card processing. The bulk of the expense is the interchange expense.
Right. Alan, I mean, this is so interesting. I have so many questions, but the one that I would really like to ask you now is, I understand that you work with businesses across, retail, hospitality, even SaaS and high risk industries. So, is there a type of business that gets payments right from the start, and what are they doing differently?
I don't know. I mean, do it's every business get it right from the start? It just depends on what their outlook is. Sometimes it's, hey, we need to get it done fast, and we don't care how much we pay because there's tons of profit in some of these businesses, and they wait till the system is broken, or they wait till they're having a lot of problems, or their growth has gotten to the point where, okay, we started at, zero, we got to 500,000, then 1 million, then 2 million, then 3, 4, 5 million. And then they're like, okay, well, now what do we do? So, in a growth situation, that's where we come in, and we can say, okay, when you're reaching these growth levels, you need to start looking at, optimizing everything to do with payments, how you're accepting those payments, lowering the risk of how you're accepting those payments. So if you're key entering them in now, maybe you need a more automated system. And then we try to work with clients to get them through that. And the other thing is when you're going through growth, years ago, we would say, okay, you're growing, Carlos, let's get you set up with load balancing, and then we're going to get you like 5 merchant accounts, and you'll be able to, send 20% of the volume to each one and separate that. The problem with that today is that doesn't work anymore. And the reason it doesn't work anymore is that over the last 5 to 10 years, we've had the most consolidation of the credit card processors and the banks on
Hmm.
the credit on the card processing side, right? So now
Right.
we have less than, I mean, before we had a ton of banks. Now we have less banks, less processors. So, we have companies, some of them have bought 20, 30, 40 companies, right? Rolled it into one company. Now, if you had merchant accounts at all the 40 companies that they bought, they're going to find that in their books, and they're going to be like, hey, what's going on with this guy? He's got
Hmm.
10 merchant accounts. So that
Right.
doesn't work anymore. Today, you're going to ramp up a business.
Uh-huh.
You go, okay, well, I'm exceeding 1 million, I'm exceeding 2 million, I'm exceeding 3 million. That's when you reach out to somebody like me and you say, hey, what can you do for us? And that's when we go talk to our banking partners and we go, okay, we want to bring this customer over, we want to get them set up more in the enterprise area of the bank so that they can optimize their payment situation, from everything from integrating their chargebacks into the system so that when they get a chargeback, we just automated a company that we have on the books. They grew to $20 million a month, and they needed to be able to fight chargebacks and not manual anymore. Where it's not manual anymore, it's all automated. So we did a deep integration for that. Companies that collect millions of dollars in invoices, we do integration for that too, where they can send out the invoice, the customer pays with a link, and then it's a webhook built back into their systems, so marking the invoice paid. So it's really important when you're growing that you're you're cutting out a lot of manual work.
Tell me something about. There's. I know that this space has many angles, many on different sides, but I would like to dive in a little bit deeper into the infrastructure of the whole thing, of the operation. So you describe payments. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you describe payments as core operating system rather than checkout feature. So walk us through what that actually means when you just sit down with a new client for the first time.
One of the things we talk to them about is compliance. So, a lot of companies don't understand think compliance, like SaaS companies. They're billing somebody every month a certain amount, let's say 50, 60, $100, $200 a month, and then they're getting a ton of chargebacks. And then we go look at how they're doing it, their website, their checkout procedure. Are they sending emails out before you're getting billed? So if somebody doesn't want to use that anymore, they can cancel. Especially on yearly, you should be sending out an invoice saying, an email saying, hey, your yearly subscription is going to renew in 10 days so that the person can cancel it. Nothing's more annoying to me when I have a yearly subscription to something that I forgot about. Then I see it on my credit card and I have to reach out to the company and say, yeah, we're not using that anymore. We want our money back. Most good companies will give you your money back. And do a return. But you have to have things on your website today to comply with state and federal laws. Like, somebody wants to cancel, you have to have a cancel button. You have to have instructions. Call us, fill out a form. You have to make it easy for people to cancel. Otherwise, you're going to end up dealing with a lot of disputes. Or if you're selling vape products or CBD or nutraceuticals, you have to have
Mhm.
certain disclosures on your website. And those are things a lot of times businesses skip over and they don't have those. And then the next thing, they're getting letters from 3-letter agencies that nobody wants to get letters from, the FDA and the FTC or the DEA about what they're selling on their website. So you have to really understand, compliance, even basic compliance, which is you have a website, you need a privacy policy, terms and conditions, return policy, cancellation policies. You need to have all of those on your website and a way to contact you. Someone buys a shirt and they want to return the shirt. There has to be a mechanism on your site. There has to be a phone number. There has to be something so that they don't do a chargeback. So
Right.
those are things that come. You have basic compliance and then very specific compliance for different types of businesses.
Right. Uh, Talking about the engineering side of it, the technical side of it a little bit further. Um, I mean, one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, from a software engineering perspective, what are the most common mistakes that developers make when building or integrating payment infrastructure into a growing platform?
So a lot of times, one of the biggest mistakes companies used to make, and it's still I see people make this mistake, is there's basically two types of integrations. One integration is what we call a semi integration. And a
Hmm.
semi integration is where you integrate to the payment processor, but the payments are actually not processed in your software. So you don't have to maintain a PCI compliant server. Same thing like in a restaurant, when you see these little devices in a restaurant, you're paying on the little device and it just basically sends back an authorization code to the software, and the software is never touching the payment data. And that's super important because if you do a full integration to payments, you're going to have a huge expense around PCI compliance and some other regulatory issues because your software is now touching the payments. So that's one mistake people get. And 25 years ago, no one ever asked us about an API to set up their systems. Today, it's all about, especially with developers. Oh, what kind of API do you have? What kind of API do you have? I go, why did you go to Stripe? Oh, the API is public. Okay, well, we work
Hmm.
with a, we can't give you a public API, but when you come to us and you say, okay, we want to use you, we say, okay, great. Now, what we do, we get you to sign an NDA. We set you up with a sandbox account, and then we put you in a Slack channel with our development team. So while you're working on your project, one, they know who you are, they know your website, and you probably already had a Zoom call with them. And now you can start working on your project while if you run into an issue, you're not searching around on GitHub, Reddit, Facebook groups, trying to solve your problem about why you can't get something to work. You can go right in and talk to a developer and they
Hmm.
can help you fix the problem. We had somebody recently, they were like, oh, this thing is not working. I was like, okay, let's jump on a Zoom. We got the developer on the Zoom. We got the customer on the Zoom. The customer put in the chat this line of code. I have no idea what that code was doing. The developer looked at it and he goes, oh, I see 3 mistakes. Let me fix it. He fixed it, sent it back to the guy. The guy tested it right when we were on the Zoom call. Boom, it was fixed in less than 5 minutes, you know,
Hmm.
literally. So, that's how we make it easy for our customers to work with us because we're
Right.
going to instruct them, don't do a full integration. You only want to do a semi integration. That way you don't have to do anything with PCI for your software. And, who wants to go out and go purchase an insurance policy to deal with that kind of cyber security type issues of stolen payment data? No one wants to deal with that.
Right. Right.
So
Absolutely.
that's what we try to educate people on is, hey, Stripe is not the only answer. There are other APIs. Sure, we're going to make you jump through a hoop because we're not letting somebody access our banking software unless we know who they are.
Exactly.
We're not
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
giving it out. Like Stripe just gives it out to people. So,
Hmm.
we can't do that. They do it because they can control it a little bit more. Us, somebody could go do some. I don't think they can do some damage, but it's still that's not what the banks want. Our banks say no, you can't do that. So that's why we make people register, and then they get a sandbox.
Right. Right.
A pretty
Uh,
simple process.
Absolutely, yeah, totally agree with you. So, unfortunately, we're coming up on time, and I only have time for one more question, and then we'll do a quick wrap up. So, I'm curious. Cash flow and payment timing are this is what I know, right? From my perspective, from the layman's perspective, is cash and flow, payment timings are deeply connected, but rarely discussed together. So, how should a growing business be thinking about payment design as a cash flow management tool, not just a processing tool?
Yeah, one of the things we talk about a lot, and I've talked about it on my podcast um, with people on my podcast about the time value of money, and you cannot be the bank for your customers. Any accountant will tell you today. I will tell you, if let's say you sell this item, sell printing, you need to get paid today and then you ship the item, because every day that you don't get paid for your invoice, you're losing money. If you think that if I send Carlos a bill for $1,000 today and he has to pay it in 7 days, but then he doesn't pay it for 30 days, and then I'm chasing him and he doesn't pay it for another 10 days, I lost 40 days. Oh, yeah, he paid me my $1,000, but is that $1,000 still $1,000? No, it's not worth $1,000 anymore, because I already paid my employees, I already paid for the materials that I used, right? And you can't do that anymore. You can't. I helped a company one time. I'll never forget this. I walked into a guy's office few years ago, and they owned a bookkeeping company. And I see around the table that there's 6 people on the phone calling people. I go, "What's that all about?" Because I was curious. He's like, "Well, we're calling people because they're not mailing in checks." So I sit down, I show him our system, how it works. The guy's like, "Man, I gotta do this. How do I do it?" So he brought in his head person, and I said, "Every new person that you guys sign up, you have them fill out a form, and you get their credit card or their bank information, and then you program it into the system, and you bill them every month." And I can tell you, like those, he had 6 employees that could be doing other functions. You got to collect your money. No one can survive if you have a ton of accounts receivable. It doesn't matter. You could be dealing with a city, you could be dealing with a big company. You got to get paid on time. And I say this, when someone says, "I don't want to take credit cards because it costs too much money," no, it costs you more money to access your line of credit, to use your own money, for you to put stuff on your credit cards because you don't have cash to pay for goods. So it's better let their bank be their bank. Don't be the bank for your customer. Don't do that. You don't want to be the bank.
Right. Indeed. So, Alan, I mean, unfortunately, we're out of time. So, I always ask my guests if they have any final words of wisdom for the audience, whatever they want to say, whatever, any way they want to be remembered by. Now is your time to shine. So, what are your final words of wisdom regarding today's topic for the audience?
Today's topic. Don't be fooled by the don't be fooled by the lure of getting set up fast for a merchant account. That's not always the answer.
Uh,
And Stripe doesn't have the only API. We have one too.
Indeed, and actually, I experienced something related to that myself. I'm not gonna go over the details, but I'll tell you, what my experience was. So anyway, thank you, Alan, for having been with us in the show. How can tell us how can people contact you? Are you on LinkedIn, your website, your email?
Yep, you can find me on LinkedIn, Allen Kopelman.
It's
You can
right
find
there.
the company on LinkedIn. Yep, the link is down below. Easy to find on LinkedIn. You can email me, Alan at npsbank.com. You can go to our website, nationwidepaymentsystems.com. On the website, there's a contact us form, and we can call you back. And then there's also a book a strategy call. We don't charge. You can call us up, set up an appointment, a phone call, or a Zoom, and we'll go over what your needs are, and then we'll come up with a, help you work for towards a solution to whatever it is that you're trying to do with your business, so we can help you run it more efficiently. And like I said, don't be the bank for your customers. They have credit cards. Let the bank float them the 30 days that they want, so you don't have to do it.
Great, excellent. Thank you so much, Alan, for having been with us on the show. Folks, right there, scrolling side to side, you'll have the website, nationwidepaymentsystems.com. And then here's Alan's email again, alan at npsbank.com. And once again, just in case you missed it, that's Alan's LinkedIn handle, Allen Kopelman on LinkedIn. So that being said, Alan, thank you so much for having shared your experience and your expertise right here on the Advancio Talks. And see you next time. And you folks, next Wednesday, please, you might want to write down or mark your calendars for next Wednesday. We're going to be speaking at the same time on Wednesday at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time with Diana Deca. Diana is she's got a very interesting topic on the she's a at the same time she's a neurologist, but at the same time she's in tech. So that should be an interesting conversation. I won't spoil the details. Just stick around for on our website and just check for the upcoming talks right there on advancio.com. That being said, I'm just displaying the URL right there, advancio.com. So that being said, again, thank you so much, Alan. Thank you, everyone, and I'll see you next time.
And thank you for having me today, Carlos.
My pleasure. See you soon.